Come on, man. Come on with the foolishness. I wasn't even nowhere near.
Now, when people are living on these levels, they're living on animal levels. Animals too cling to life. Animals too beget their future. Animals too are fighting to win. And when people are living on those levels, they have to be controlled by social law, dharma. Just think of our popular religions, what they're concerned with. Prayers for health, wealth, progeny, victory. That is asking the gods to serve your animal nature. This is popular religion. And it doesn't matter what the god's name. I'll never forget being in Mexico City at the Basilica, or whatever you'd call it, of the Virgin of Guadalupe. And the people there, the women on their knees coming for blocks with their little baby that the Virgin has given them in health to thank. Swarms of people. The last time I had seen anything quite like that was at Puri, the temple of the Jagannath in Puri. The same kind of popular religiosity. And I thought, what is it the popular world wants? Health, wealth, progeny. And it doesn't matter what the god's name is. So that's the one religion, the one popular religion all over the world, no matter what the name of the god is. And the job of the priests, those in charge of the historical temple, is to get the name of their god linked up with this thing, and the money pours in like crazy. Now, think of the first temptations of the Buddha. The first was the temptation of lust, Chakra 2. The second is the temptation of fear, Chakra 3. The third was the temptation of duty, Dharma. He had gone past this. And we're not in the field of properly religious life, in the field of the spiritual birth, until we have come up to Chakra 4. And this is at the level of the heart, the sacred heart of Jesus. Jesus, as Leopold Bloom says in Ulysses, with his heart on his sleeve.
Yes, we're back. This is episode 4 of the Chakra Nova podcast, where today we will be discussing the inner child. And the inner child is a powerful tool for psychic development, but a lot of people don't understand its working or how to actually bring it about. So this is why I'm bringing my friends Sacred Serpent and Prime Harmonic along with me as we discuss, not only chakra work and how brilliant and wonderful and magnificent it is, but the actual blocks and how they overcome those blocks so you don't have to be limited by your spiritual experience based upon the trauma or based upon the blocked inner child. So without further ado, let me introduce my wonderful, magnanimous, super duper woke co-host, Sacred Serpent and Prime Harmonic. How are y'all doing?
Peace.
Peace to the
Super
family.
duper
Peace
woke.
to the family.
Super
I don't even.
duper work.
I'll fight with him after the show on that one. But go ahead.
How y'all doing today, man? What's the vibes like for you? Usually, Prime go Sacred. How has it been for you? You can start it off with your introduction.
First and foremost, I just want to thank the family for allowing us this space once again.
Once again, it's on.
I want to thank all the participants, whether willing or unwilling or by default, whichever ones you are. I want to pay homage and acknowledgement to each and one of y'all ancestors, known and unknown. Ashe. Having said all of that, this is an extremely poignant crucial and important topic.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are not privy to wanting to even dive into their inner child or their inner self, their younger being, where it all began, just because, of their connection with, believing in, right or wrong and what that means for their being and who they are. So we want to demystify some of that stuff for the folks. We want to demystify some of those connections and correlations as it corresponds to the chakra system. And also, we just want to let y'all know that we got some more info, some more profound, intuitive info that's just going to help you further along in your journey. We appreciate y'all once again for providing the space. Thank you.
That was dope, man.
Wait, the intro. That's what I'm talking about. I told you to keep that same energy, sir. So far, you ain't disappointed. So the same energy that you is on, like, temper that shit out. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Brian. How you feeling, brother man?
I'm feeling good. I just want to piggyback off what Serpent said. I like the word he used to demystify it, right?
Yeah.
Because when we do this inner child work, I look at it really as a journey back to soul, because that inner child holds the key to our soul's incarnation on this planet, and it probably knows it more clearly than the adult that we've learned to become for the sake of society. So when you pair that with opening your chakras and bringing more energy into your life, the best way to be a productive adult from that point, is to have that energy guided by your soul as opposed to by society. So yeah, that's it.
All right, so y'all already cooking with hot grease. You cooking in more ways than one, Prime. But
right, but cooking daughter's dinner.
yes. But for real, when you think about trauma, we're gonna go into an etymology real quick, a definition to bring it to a certain understanding for the family. When you think about trauma, the etymology for it is a wound. But when you think about it psychologically, it is a defeat. So overactive, or let's just say a balanced solar plexus chakra, is somebody that's showing up to the world undefeated, right? They have the fire of life. They know exactly who they are. They know exactly what they're about to bring to the table. Generally, people don't show up like that for real, even when they want to show up like that. So you can have an overactive solar plexus where you overcompensating for that trauma or that defeat of the inner child, right? So underactive solar plexus is where most of us are at, right? We don't want to project ourselves because we don't want to be defeated, aka relive that inner child defeat as an adult, because we don't know how it'll respond. This is like if a person is like bugging out, going crazy on you, you probably triggered that inner child response system to whereas they're going somewhere that they don't want to go and they're handling something that they feel like they can't handle because they've been defeated. So throwing it back to y'all, can y'all relate to having your inner child defeated? And this is the only time we got like a time limit. So I would just be like, make sure you hit home runs, man. Like I said, keep that same energy, Serpent, but have you ever been defeated as a child, and how has that affected you as an adult? I got my story, but I'll let y'all go.
I think I can make mine quick, if you don't mind, Serpent.
Don't mind, no problem.
All right, so when I was born, my brother and I were like 3 months premature, so we were tiny. But he got most of the fraternal, and but he got most of the nourishment in the womb. So basically, he grew up, a little bigger than I did, and I was like scrawny, and I mean scrawny. Like I was so skinny. One day in high school, he was sitting by this girl, and they saw me walk by. She didn't know we was brothers, and she said to him, "That boy is so skinny. What he gonna do in life?" So, so I had to get creative, right? Like when I had to deal with like neighborhood bullies, it wasn't something that I usually ended up doing on my own. I would have to find bigger friends, and and it made me kind of be friendly to everybody because I never knew who I would have to call on or who would have my back. But the way I started compensating for that was more so to reach out to other people. But then it got to a point in my life where, I had to learn to depend on myself for certain things, and be strong on my own, stand up to people on my own. So on that aspect, I would say my solar plexus was underdeveloped, because I was relying too much on other people for my strength. Um, and and yes, as I got older, I did kind of overcompensate sometimes, and I still have to check my temper. My temper is nasty sometimes, and I have to watch myself. My wife continuously is checking me on it.
Really, Prime. This is
Yeah,
this is interesting.
yeah, man. Yeah.
This is beautiful and
Most
interesting
of
at
the
the
most of
same
the
time.
martial arts I use to try and shut myself up.
To channel that frustration. I got you. That's
Yeah,
dope. hmm
yeah.
That's
So
powerful.
I mean, but all in all, I would say I deal with it in a positive manner in that I know it, I see it, and I know what it is. Then it's just a matter of, okay, now that you see it and you know it, do what you're supposed to do. Exercise your means of control to channel it in a different way. And it's a challenge. My daughter gives me a new challenge every day. And every day I feel like I got to find a new creative way to ask her to take a shower, you know,
hmm
to not blow
hmm
up or get upset. You know what I
hmm
mean? But I
hmm
know ultimately that I can't blow up and keep getting upset at her, or she gonna grow up with an underdeveloped solar plexus.
hmm hmm
So yeah, I'm in
hmm
that there.
Powerful. Powerful. Serpent, the womb, or being defeated as a child, and do you feel like that impacts you today?
Yeah, I, I, I got one of those stories where it's like I was the kid who was always prevalent for taking up for other kids and shit. So like I would end up talking people out of jumping one kid and end up getting jumped myself. So like uh I normally had like too many words to explain the situation, and the only thing I could really think of was like, you remember back in the days when any educated person talked, and you got that meme of that black guy that's just like, oh, you think you smart,
Yep,
huh? You know what I'm
yep.
saying? So
You getting
like,
them smart ones.
yeah, yeah. So like, I usually always got in trouble for my mouth, right? Like, cause I was just always too quick to call a thing out and be like, yeah, that's bullshit. And motherfuckers always like, yeah, shut your mouth, man, be quiet, man. He don't know no better. I
hmm
usually always got in trouble for that. So as I got older, I realized like just because you know a thing doesn't mean that you actually need to call out a particular thing. And like even if you know a thing and to call it out, like is it really going to benefit the situation by you calling that thing out?
hmm
So like I always thought like to use my mouth as that proverbial sword. It was to pick those battles where those battles could be actually beneficial, not those battles just to fight because your ego thought you could win type shit. So
hmm
Dope.
to shorten it, I was the kid that was too smart for his own good, and then I grew into the man who became extremely cautious about the words I use.
hmm And you feel like that can affect you in the world? Do you feel like you should say whatever you feel, or do you feel like it's
I
normal
feel like
to
I
temper
feel
your
like I
words
feel,
back
I feel like I feel like
because you
I
don't want
feel
to get
like there's a
punished?
balance. Nah, I
Yeah.
feel like there's a balance. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like I eventually got to that point where even if I lost a fight, like I would still run my mouth. right?
Mm-hmm.
So once I realized that the physical confrontation part wasn't the thing to be afraid of, like that wasn't the
Uh-huh.
reason why I tempered my speech. I began to temper my speech mainly because my preconceived righteousness or place in whatever level it is that I have in my standing in life does not give me the right to impose myself on another individual, regardless of where they are. You understand? So
Word.
they could not have the mental understanding or capability that I have, but that doesn't make them lesser than I, and that doesn't make me better than them. So therefore, if I had enough compassion in most of those situations as a kid, I probably could have talked my way out of those fights too. You dig what I'm saying? So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
take it
Mhm.
as physical altercation being a deterrent, because I
Mm-hmm.
love to fight too. I love to fight. I'm from Brooklyn. Like I love to fight. But
Mm-hmm.
but I took it as is there a necessity to it? You know what I'm saying? Like, is
Right.
there a beneficial necessity to either party that we embark on this right now? Because I would
Mm-hmm.
love to get a bloody nose and a black eye too, and just talk to a girl while I got ice on my lip. I would love to do that too. You know what I'm saying? I could do that with the best of them. But my thing
Hey,
is there
at
really a
least you'll know
benefit
you could
to it
take a
other than
hit.
the new? I mean, is there really a benefit to it other than a new shiner? You know what I'm saying? So that's
Mm-hmm.
the way I eventually developed.
Mm-hmm. I guess for me, I seen it. Well, two things to answer the question from Lauren. We're using the solar plexus and the inner child as a way to assist people in bringing awareness to their solar plexus, awareness to their digestive tract when we are in fear or we feel as though we're not good enough. It
Mhm.
promotes those hormones that block our digestive tract, and generally you try to get to a point where you are free, but being free is an internal thing. It's a digestive thing. And ultimately, what holds us back is those inner child subconscious beliefs or non beliefs or blockages or trauma. And sometimes it's not like the most traumatic thing that opens you up to trauma. Sometimes, as you see on this diagram, you can be safe and feel guilty for your safety. And because you don't process that trauma, because you don't even view it as
Yeah.
trauma,
Yep.
that creates an overprotectiveness in your aura, in yourself, in your life, to where you're not even projecting yourself fully. You're looking for things to digest that you agree with. And this could be mental digestion. This could be what you listen to. You digest what you listen to, what you see, what you eat. Everything is a matter of what you can digest. So, digestion is you digesting your trauma. When I was 19 years old, I had a traumatic experience that I'm not sure what happened. I
Mm.
can only give you a truth that I feel. I feel like I jumped the timeline after I got shot.
Mm. Mm.
But when I came to, I didn't get shot. Now I'm going to give you,
Yeah.
I wasn't shot, but I was in prison. It was
Yeah.
weird.
Mm,
I went to prison.
mm,
Now, prison could be like a government psyop. You don't know what happened in prison for real, because you could eat something, pass out for 5 days, wake up,
Yep.
and think like you just woke up. You just went to sleep
Mhm.
and woke up. You can't recall every day that you was locked up. So generally, I feel like that I went on some kind of a walk-in process. Because what else happened is that all of this could be justified by like other means, but I tend to look at it spiritually, and I could be wrong. So I'm gonna just put that out there as well. But when I jumped the timeline, I was able to be a different psychic person that I wasn't before. And I was able to say things and do things and perceive things and magnetize things that the Kyrie before this traumatic event only would dream about.
Yep.
Right. I lost like when I was like 300 pounds, and I went to prison. I lost like 100 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just like a whole different person once I got out of prison, like physically, mentally, and where I feel spiritually. So
Mm.
I didn't necessarily process it then as I'm processing it now, but I'll just try to make it quick. I got a friend, right, who I give readings to. I've been giving readings to for years now. I'm not going to say his name because he's on the way to being famous. He's shooting a movie with a famous actor with that same exact plot.
Wow.
The person got shot and killed, and come to find out that he is a government experiment.
Damn.
And so, like, when the movie come out with the famous actor, we're gonna talk about it, but I'm not gonna, like, if you just Google what I'm saying, you will see what I'm talking about. Just Google famous actor cloning movie on Netflix. And a person that works for that, I'm not going to say who is the person that works for the set, is like a near and dear friend to me. Like we talk monthly on spiritual shit. He don't know that the story is closely related to my life, but I'm just saying that the trauma, and I'm gonna finish with this, is the point where your heart opens up and it allows for your spirit to really either come in or get out. So I think that this becomes a more powerful conversation if you can understand where your trauma is bringing you as opposed to what happened. Because I could be like, I got shot and it was traumatic and it held me back. But I think that I was a walk-in, and this
Yeah.
person that is here is a different person than I once was. And it was because of the trauma. So once again, have y'all had near-death experiences or traumatic experiences that had a spiritual significance associated or attached to it?
For sure. For sure. For me, my near death stuff was more sometimes mostly out of my clumsiness. Or like one time me and my brother were about to cross the street at night. It was when I first started taking capoeira, and I remember this vividly. There was this truck driving by, and for some reason both of us just kind of stopped. Like we were crossing and we were going to stand like in the middle of the road while this truck drove by, but we stood like about a foot back from where we would normally stop. And as this truck drove by, we saw some planks sticking out the back, and the truck was coming at speed, didn't stop, didn't slow down. And as it went by us, the planks on the back had these long nails sticking out of it. And, you know, we could almost feel the wind whistling past our chins with these long nails. You know what I mean? Like if we was just one step closer, I'm sure that dude would have kept on driving, but one of us would have had our throats cut.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, it kind of brought me into an awareness. But I'll give you another example, and it's one I told you about in the Breathing 101.
Mm-hmm.
When me and my brother was breaking up this fight with this guy. One guy had like a pipe, the other had a machete. They were both steaming mad, and for whatever reason, we saw fit to stop them from trying to kill each other. My brother was facing one, and I was facing the other. I don't remember who was facing who, but I keep seeing situations like that as a portal. Like in that instant, we knew what we had to do to make sure that nobody died and the streets got cleared and the cops weren't coming around. And he stood in front of one, I stood in front of the other, and we convinced them to get back in their cars and just go on their way. But after it was over, that's when I started feeling my heart racing and all that stuff. Because it could have went down a whole different way. And every time like that, something like that has happened in my life, to me, it's like I always see myself on the other side of it. You know what I mean? Like I don't really see it as I mean, yeah, you could call it jumping the timeline, but I look at it as that's just, how it is. And it's a part of your life. So
the invincibility of your story and journey.
yeah.
Most
I mean,
people are afraid that something bad is going to happen, though.
right.
How do you deal with that in the space of like knowing that you have this other side? I think this results into chakra work, because when you think about like fight or flight, right? A
Yeah.
lot of the book is referencing fight or flight and stress, and how generally we put ourselves in fight or flight and stressful energies and promote those hormones. But imagine that nothing bad is going to happen to you, Prime, but you're still acting like you defending, against some real violence, right? Because people
Well,
heartbeats and they palms get sweaty every day, even like they late for work, or they
yeah,
got to deal with their baby dad that they don't really
true.
like, you know what I'm saying? They heart beating like, I don't know how this person going to act, and I really think like something bad is going to happen, so I'm going to create those hormones. And what
Right.
we're trying to also say is that this is what blocks the solar plexus chakra, like when you
Right.
are imagining these outcomes. But the timeline jump in. What's the other analogy that you have for it?
So there's this guy, Daryl Anka, who channels this entity called Bashar, and he basically says that um, every billionth of a second, our life can take another route. And to us, it may seem like we're jumping a timeline, but it's really just us looking at our experience from another perspective, a very different perspective, but we're still our soul experiencing our time in this incarnation. But we made the switch so miraculously or so fast that the world changed around us so much that other people would deem it a miracle, or how that happened. Like I was watching. I'm gonna shut up after this. I want to hear some of what Serpent got to say on this. But
Word.
I was at Dunn's River Falls with this camping group in '92. We had these. It was the Young Technocrats. There's a bunch of kids from DC, and they had this camp, and we were doing like this exchange computer thing with Jamaica. It was really cool. So in the end, we got to take the kids to Jamaica, and we got to go up Dunn's River Falls, and they were climbing up these rocks. And I don't know if you ever been there, but this was before they make now they got, if you go up there, you got to do this tourist chain walk with these guides, and you can only go their way kind of thing. But at that time, it was just slippery rocks with algae, and you going straight up a waterfall. And if you fall down, you going down and falling on them rocks, and you falling all the way to the bottom. So I was there with about 10 or 11 of these children, and they took off up the rocks. And I said, oh, hell no. And I was shaking. I mean, like I was seriously knee knocking, shaking, thinking, I got to go up there, because if anything happened to them kids, I got to say something to their parents back home, right? Or I got to be accountable. So I start making my way up them rocks, and the very first step I took, I froze. And I just started praying. I was like, I got to get up there to them kids. I don't care what happened. I said, I can't die. I got to get up there. And I swear I felt the world shift around me. You can call it angels. You can call it what you want to call it. But the strength came in a divine manner for me to get my ass up that hill and follow them kids. And them little knuckleheads, when they got to the top, ran back down and did it again like 3 or 4 times.
There's all types of nuggets of wisdom in that, right? Because when you really want something, due to the power vested within you, you can accomplish great things. But defeat at a young age will have you thinking that you can't even climb mountains when you actually can.
Yep.
Like, you can do a lot of shit, but the defeat at a young age really will have you imagining that when it gets down to the get down. Because think about it. Think about if you every day said, oh man, I can't. If you don't have that experience, or if you chose to do something else, like run and tell the teachers or something like that, you wouldn't be the man that you are today.
Hell no. So that's why I say it's like a portal. Because I mean, I actually physically felt the vibe shift. Like I felt like I was walking through into another life. Like you said, I saw a life with me trying to explain some shit to these kids' parents, and I saw a life with me being accountable. And I leapt through the portal of me being accountable.
There you go. Serpent. Near-death experiences related to your spiritual journey, or
I'll tell y'all about the shootouts with the MAC-10 another day.
Oh man, I wasn't gonna go to my nights in Medellin, but
Sorry, man. Go ahead, Serpent. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead.
Me and Pablo.
I truly appreciate you taking me back to my Menace to Society days. Thank you. Yeah, no, well, my spiritual journey began at that point. At one time or another, I did not care about being here or existing. And I did something and got behind the wheel and thought that it was all over and woke up in a helicopter being airlifted to the emergency room.
Damn.
And when I came to, it was not, me thinking I was dead and I was in the astral or something. It was me like being alive and having to explain myself to a police officer. And the reality of everything that I did, which was smoke a bunch of PCP to get behind the wheel of my car and not care what I was doing. When I realized what had happened, like I said, I was in the bed having to explain myself to the cop, and I was happy to explain myself to the cop because I thought it was fantastic that I could actually still be here. And I just remember
that's a dope perspective, man.
I remember a conversation I had with self, and I don't even know if it was the self. It might have been residual ego responses, but I remember asking myself, or I remember something asking me, who said it was your decision, right? Like who gave you the idea that it was your decision to not be here? And immediately before I could even answer that question to myself, I remember opening up my eyes and having to explain myself to the cops. So after that was rehab, and then after rehab, I got an extreme connection to my spiritual self, and I want to say maybe like 12, 13 months later is when I finally got a reading from Hood Mystic. So I didn't care about the idea of spirituality up until that point. I didn't care about the idea of anything mystical, anything non-tangible, anything that the hands could not touch or the eyes could not see up until that point. And waking up in that hospital bed, and then not only having to answer the questions to, from my soul's directive. I know that those are soul questions, like I say, ego, but I know that those are soul questions. Not only having to answer those questions to self, I also had to answer the question to the cop. And he asked me one question I didn't have a right away answer for. And he was like, do your kids get a say in this? And I didn't directly have an answer for that question, and because I didn't have an answer for that question, that meant that absolutely there was a reason why I was here, and absolutely there was a lot of work to be done, and absolutely no matter how hard or how fucked up I may think things are, like you still have to do this thing, like like it really doesn't matter, you know what I'm saying? So that started my spiritual journey. And uh, yeah,
That's heavy, man.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
So,
I think that you sharing your story will help a lot of people kind of get over the small blockages that they have or relate, because at the end of the day it's low exposure versus high exposure, and the people that you deal with. Like for me, I've had two lovers transition, so I'm high exposure to traumatic experiences. Like I said, I've seen myself, like not seen myself, I felt myself getting shot. I said I'm shot. I felt shot. And
mm,
then I blinked my eyes a couple of times and I wasn't shot no more. And I'm like, that's interesting as fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no way that I could kind of sit here into the outside world. It's like, damn, you went to jail. What you go to jail for? It's like I didn't go to jail. I went to purgatory. Like what?
mm,
Like yeah, I went to purgatory and I made it out. It's like, wow, how'd you make it out? It wasn't, I just got used to being in purgatory. I loved it. And there was no use for
hmm
me being in purgatory. So they just
yep,
kicked me
hmm
out and back into the world with a new spirit
yep,
and a new soul. So today
there
we're
is another level behind purgatory. There is another
yeah.
level behind purgatory.
yeah,
That
you
basement.
know, it's not the end. You can go, you can
Mm-mm.
ascend or descend, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think that I feel like as men on this podcast, and as men, it's gonna be a lot of shit that's gonna be said about us because we are men. But what's not gonna be said is it's very beautiful how those men work through their trauma, right? That's
Nah,
rarely
ain't
gonna be
no,
said. So
Well, well,
I'll be the one to say it to you guys. It's very beautiful how you work through your trauma because most people wouldn't. Most people would look at their exposure to trauma and suppress it. And this is the value of inner child work. It allows you to work through what you have seen, what you have been perceived to be defeated, and then we insert certain things like astrology, occultism, but you have a sincere understanding of it, learning it. What you begin to do is heal those psychological wounds. The same way as you would want to heal, what were you saying earlier, Serpent, about a physical wound? It gets hard and callous.
yeah,
Imagine if
yeah.
mm,
your
When it,
soul is like
that,
that. So the work that we're doing is softening the calloused soul, hardened callous of the male
yep,
soul
yep,
that males don't have these kind of conversations. I just wanted to say that.
yeah. Nah, it's
I
straight
think
up,
it's
man. And
important.
thank you too, Hood. Shoot.
Mm,
I
no.
think that I think it's important. I think it's important that you brought that up, though. Just another little tidbit for it. Like when you think about a wound, you think about a wound on the surface level, on the physical. You got to cut, you got to scrape, you got to scratch.
Yeah,
Something you put iodine on, or you put
yeah.
alcohol on, and you put a band-aid over. But what happens when you wound the soul?
Hmm.
Right? That's usually what they call trauma. See, trauma is not the cause. Trauma is the residual effect of a wound on your soul because
Yo, you gonna have to say that one more time,
you
man.
perceive
You know
car
that's gonna go over some heads.
your 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 wound on the soul is completely different from a physical wound. So trauma is a wound on your soul. That is not a wound on your physical being. Yeah, you might have got your ass beaten, needed some alcohol and stuff, rubbing alcohol and stuff back then when it happened. But what was actually wounded was your being, was your soul, because
Mm.
you kept it all of this time, right? If it was just your physical body, that thing would have went away once it got better, once you no longer needed a band-aid, once the skin grew back, right? But because you view that as a piece of possession, like you identify with it, so you've carried it
Yeah,
this long. So now that becomes a wound on the soul, wound on the psyche, as opposed to a wound on your physical body. Now, a wound on the psyche needs to be acknowledged 10 times more than a wound on the body does,
Yep.
because you don't readily acknowledge a wound on the psyche, because you can hold that back from anybody and just shut your mouth and close your eyes and nobody will know you have it, but it's still there,
And it's
right?
gonna keep letting you know
So,
it's there.
and it's going to keep letting you know it's there. So because it's not a tangible thing and you don't have to do it out in the open, you think you could just repress it and suppress it and it doesn't no longer exist. But because
Mm.
that's also a form of energy, that energy is going to grow. Whether you
Yep.
are acknowledging it or being aware of it or not, the energy is going to grow and it has to go somewhere.
Yep.
So what happens
You,
when that thing has to go somewhere?
yep.
That's
You gotta
generally what we're talking
transform.
about with this trauma. Like what happens
Hmm.
when that thing has to go somewhere. And it's tired of waiting
Hmm.
for you to make a decision about it. It's tired of waiting for you to acknowledge it exists. And it's tired of your reasonings and your justifications for why it doesn't matter, right? What happens then? What happens when that thing needs to go somewhere? Then,
Yep. Yep. Straight
Mm-hmm.
up. Straight up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like, when we were children, we would be creative and like feel like every kid in the world. We didn't have no internet. We knew how to draw these S's because these S's represented one, connection, and two, the solar plexus, and three, our superpowers.
Mm.
And you got to know that the collective consciousness is in deep relation to our creative pursuits and our ability to work at something, right? Because what tends to happen is that you will find your soul tribe when you project yourself. But think about how good it felt to put those three lines down and put
Yeah.
that thing together and shade your S up. It did something to the psyche, right? It did something, but it was creative, it was empowering, and it was a sigil,
mm-hmm.
right?
It
And
was a
these
ritual,
things,
bro.
it was a ritual. I don't even know y'all, but y'all
Mm.
fucking did this,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. I remember a girl showed me how to do that in elementary school.
A
I don't even
girl
remember
showed
why.
me too. Why,
Yeah.
right? But we
Yeah.
all did it though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how I relate this to trauma is that trauma is non-local,
Mm.
meaning that no matter where you're at on the spectrum, if you want to love somebody, they probably experience trauma. And how you handle them is extremely important. But if y'all
Yeah.
don't want to deal with it or address it and be like, I want a man that got a lot of money, and well, what's the degree of trauma do you want your man? Right?
The new dating questions.
Hey,
Is there a level to that thing? Is there a level
hey,
to that thing?
it's not a level because generally you might want to get a man in your life that can handle a firearm,
Yep.
right? That been to
Yep.
war or have survival skills, right?
Hmm.
Because a smooth talking conscious nigga, that's only gonna get you so far in life, right?
Only so
Because
far.
because in life there's another aspect towards it called stress. And sometimes it ain't as bad as you make it seem. But
Mm.
when you have a horrible way of handling stress, oh Lord, you do make it bad, right? You do create the vibration that creates the sinkhole. So
Yes.
what I'm trying to bring forward is an ability to look at your past, look at your partner's past, and
Mm.
bring that motherfucker some comfort, right? As
Hmm.
opposed to some
Mm-hmm.
fucking judgment, right?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
because trauma is non-local, and the love and support that he gets or she gets is going to be the healing salve to whatever.
Yep.
But if you're using it as a tool of judgment and manipulation, because that's another thing about trauma, it makes you weak
Dang, I forgot
and
all about
vulnerable,
that part, man.
right?
Yeah.
Because you don't see your power. But I'm bear witnessing right now. Ain't nobody that grew up in public schools ain't drew this S before, right? Somehow, some way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the shit that we working with is the collective unconscious, and we have a way to birth ideas and send them through a fiber optic network that goddamn Time Warner
Yep.
would be jealous of.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. They already are.
Who called it? Common
I
sense called it the nigga net.
say,
They
I say.
already are.
Yep.
So,
Mm-hmm.
man, I'm just, spitballing, freestyling, and, doing my graffiti and breakdancing and DJing and MC and just keeping it hip hop. But,
Word.
y'all can jump in at any time, man. How do this symbol and sigil, what's y'all relationship with the almighty S?
I think I was in fifth grade. My brother taught me that S. But my brother went to Catholic school. I went to
Mm.
public school, and I'm the younger one.
Mm.
And it's probably like one of the last years he was in school because he's like a career, like habitual, jail hopper. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
he just, recently flipped that thing. But yeah, his last years
Nice.
of school, he taught me S. He taught me that S. And he was in Catholic school. I was in public school. He taught me that. That's the only reason I know what that S is. I used to think that was the stitch lines for. Matter of fact, they taught it to us as the stitch lines for all letters for graffiti. So you didn't.
Mm.
Those three lines don't only apply to the S. You could use them with any letter. You just have to reconfigure the formation of the line. That goes to every letter in the
Good.
alphabet.
Damn.
Y'all getting too deep for a brother.
I'm
Like,
gonna be a doodling motherfucker this evening.
you feel me? Like,
No,
tap
I'm just
into that
saying.
inner child.
It's the
Like,
same.
Yeah.
It's the
speak
same
your
thing
worth.
though,
This is speak
because
your worth.
you know the, the thousand circle, of lotus flower like representation. That
Mm-hmm.
thing is based off of the 360-degree angle of the head. So if you keep
Mm-hmm.
combining these circles, you can shape out any face that you want to shape out. They just
Yeah.
figured out how much to add and how much to take off. Like that's
Yeah.
basically what they did, and they're showing you what it is. Just that the majority of people are not trained to know what they are looking at. You look at that shit, you say, "Oh, beautiful." You don't know that is the fucking geometrical shape and format for you to draw anything you want to on this planet. You don't realize
Yeah.
that when you look at it. You just think it's beautiful. You know what I'm saying?
Next level. Fibonacci.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Fibonacci, man.
I think
So,
back to the superheroes, man. If you
go ahead.
ever like drew yourself as a superhero,
Mm-hmm.
or drew a superhero projecting yourself into a superhero, that was like, when we first started talking about the solar plexus stuff, um, that was the first thing that popped in my mind. Like I remember uh, I drew this superhero character and I made some things happen to the character, and I had didn't never finish the comic book, but I put it away somewhere, and I wish to God I could find that joint now. But everything that I drew happening to him in like 2 or 3 pages happened to me in life, getting laid off and some other stuff happening. I was like, man, and it just made me realize how much I was really projecting into what I was drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say, if anybody listening has ever drawn themselves or drew a superhero on a piece of paper, and I know boys were notorious for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure girls did it to a degree too. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how sure, but go back and revisit that joint. If you could draw yourself as a superhero now, what would you, what superpowers would you
Mm-hmm.
give yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And take that confidence into your day to day.
Mm-hmm.
100. Projecting yourself into art. So generally, if you're talking about a wounded solar plexus chakra, that's a person who feels defeated with projecting themselves out into life. But once again, like, you can project yourself into a painting with a desired outcome because you did it when you were a child, right? You was doodling, creating sigils and talismans and amulets, right?
Wow.
All you had to do is charge them with particular intention. So if you ever was like me, I could do things like I was a published author at like 12.
Nice.
That's just, you know how, like, you just, when you were a kid, you just want to win a contest, and you just win that contest because you won that motherfucker, right? So it was a writing contest, and I just wanted to win it. So when the teacher said, "Kyrie, you won it," I was like, "I know." She's like looking at me like, and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know, bro." It's like when you young, you have a level of confidence and a closer relationship
Unshakable.
to your soul, right? And
Unshakable.
that trauma or that wound is the defeat.
I'm reminding you. Spirit delay.
Delay.
Whoa. See, when you start putting AI with the spirit, see, that's another level we can't even talk about today. Like, you were supposed to mute that thing. Like, what is she doing? You know
I want to put Alexa and Siri in the same room and make them answer each other questions.
Oh yeah, they fight.
Trap them in the room by mistake, right? Trap them in there inadvertently. Like, oh my bad, we got the door locked. Y'all gonna have to talk. I'm not talking to her. I'm not talking to her.
Who is this bitch?
Oh,
how long you know them?
She thinks she cute.
How long you been here?
I think she the shit. She got an update, girl.
Word. So what? You fuck with Apple, bitch. So what?
Bezos is still alive. Last I checked. Oh, y'all throw low blows now. Well, I get energy channel from the other side, bitch. Oh,
now I understand. You have no ethics, bitch. You have no morals. You calling out a nigga deaf and all of that. Like, what? Wait a minute. Oh, they fighting. They fighting. Yeah.
I love
that'll be dope.
I love the hard left as we take a hard out. I gotta cook some biscuits and bring some bacon home.
Word.
I'm gonna do that, and I'll catch y'all on the flip side, man.
All right.
Do y'all got anything to leave? Y'all got anything to kind of like send us off with?
Nah, yeah. The only thing I would say is thanks once again. But try being the parent that you always wanted that inner child to have.
Yeah.
You know, try practicing that parenting with yourself, right? And then eventually you're going to exemplify that and display that to anything and everything and how you carry yourself, and it gives you a defense that isn't a default mechanism, that isn't a taught projection. It gives you something that you actually came up with yourself, because ultimately this stuff is still your responsibility. Like, we could blame our parents, we could blame whoever brought us up, we could blame whatever we want to. At the end of the day, we are here for a reason, and 99.9% of y'all chose to be here, and it's y'all job figuring out why y'all chose to be here. So I shade to all of y'all ancestors, known and unknown, and like I said, thank y'all for the space and time.
That's dope. Yeah, I just want to say, if you think you can't draw, sketch it, doodle. If you think you can't doodle, write it out. If you can't write it out, get a tape recorder and tell your
Mhm.
story. If you
Mhm.
can't tell it, paint it with
Mhm.
some paint splashes, cut it out of
Mhm.
some fabric, make a quilt,
Mhm.
whatever. However you
Do a
feel free to make that
collage.
right. Make your right. Cut some stuff out of magazines to make your
Mhm.
story. Start making your story again.
Mhm. Mhm.
Start making
Mm-hmm.
your story again.
You
Yeah,
said something very profound, Prime. You said you projected yourself into your art, right? I
Hmm.
think
mm,
creativity is that. Like whenever you feel like want to make a song, if you ain't never sold a drug in your life, make a song about being a drug lord or something like that. Like ain't nothing stopping you from being creative and being
Yeah.
imaginative. So trauma will block you into just being free to be imaginative because I'm about to end this live and head to Colombia and mess with
All
my
right.
homeboys Pablo and them, and get them
mm-hmm.
bricks off,
Hey
because
man, I ordered my cash hat, man. Where's my
okay,
cash hat?
hey, hey, one thing I don't
Hey,
do is
And the
share.
juggernaut.
hey,
One thing I don't do
yeah.
is deliver
I
things.
know. I
So
know. But when I get it, man,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it up on Instagram. I don't care if it's 80 degrees outside. I'm gonna put
oh
that
yeah,
hat on and take some
oh yeah,
pictures.
oh yeah.
But
It's,
they pretty good
Yeah,
though,
man.
man. They pretty good, man. So yeah,
it'll
jump
get
on it.
there.
Like
It'll get there.
I know, I
customer
know.
service,
All the links is
customer
in the
service is not
description.
a push down the road.
No,
Oh,
your
They
and
don't
customer
push you down the
service is
road.
right here. So you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They don't push
Chakra
you down the
Nova.
road. They got you.
Sorry,
yeah,
one more thing. Let's shout out the Chakra Nova course is still available.
yeah.
Um, you know, we ain't talking out our necks
Mm-mm.
and
Yeah. No, no,
what
no, no.
we saying from experience, and we laid out the keys to how we transcended our experiences in that Chakra Nova course. So it's valuable, and I just keep laughing to myself because I know 5, 10, 20, however many years from now, somebody gonna be looking back in history and be like, "What? Y'all only sold them courses for how much?
Mm-hmm.
What?"
Yeah, they gonna be mad. They might lock us up for that shit. They might like us. They might. Yeah, we might get the lifetime achievement award for that. Like underselling. Talk about
Yeah, man.
underselling. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
negative equity because you know how I look at it is millions of people in the world. So if we can get a
Mhm.
strong foundation of 100 or maybe 1,000 people that we give it
Yeah,
away to, and they do the chakra work, and people say, "Well, how'd you
yeah,
manifest that? How'd you do that?" Well,
yeah.
I built a relationship with my own personal
Myself.
guide, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And where'd you learn that from? Oh, Chakra Nova. Well, I'm Oprah, so I'll sell this. I'll promote this to 1 million people, and then
Everybody, look under your chairs.
yeah, now everybody
Mhm.
got Chakra
Mhm.
Nova box sets and things of that nature. But
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now, it's like you can pre-order the book right for like 20 something bucks. You feel me? Like that's really
Mhm.
nothing. You know what I'm saying? And this is life, blood, sweat, and tears. Like how long of a process did it take? Like I I feel like we did it particular like this so people can see the
Mm-hmm.
effort and energy that it take to
Mm-hmm.
build a book. It ain't just something that I just woke up and said, "All right, we're doing a Chakra Nova book." Right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It was just this time,
They could not.
energy.
They could not wake up. They could not wake up tomorrow and say they found 2 videos, and next thing you know, these niggas blew up. Like, no,
Yeah,
this shit has been going on, like
yeah.
going
Yeah.
on, going on.
But it's been right and exact, and that's the way that I know that it's going to pan out. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like it's what people need, and so I
Yeah.
don't care. It's all about letting people know the information. It's very vast. That's why we can come up on here every Thursday. Next Thursday, hopefully, our souls willing, that I can get these two
Mm-hmm.
people in here once again, and we have a topic related to chakras, and we'll have another dynamite conversation. I think next week will be a longer time because I
Dynamite.
gotta do some stuff, but
Yeah.
this conversation was well needed for me. I'm gonna listen to this back, do some timestamps, and cut up some parts of this and
Right.
rebroadcast it because it's some nuggets that people need to hear in relation to this spiritual journey. So Thank y'all for everybody tuning in. I'm also going
Peace,
to put
peace.
this on the podcast as well. So if you just want to listen to it, the links will be in the description for the podcast as well. So peace to everybody, man. Y'all have a great one.
Peace, family.
Y'all
Next
too. Peace.
Thursday or on Instagram.
Peace.
Y'all know it's good, man. Peace.